Hi, welcome back to the Codeigniter series. Now, in the last video, we have created the user registration form and the login form. Now, I have just set up the dashboard here. Don't worry, this is just the HTML that is loaded here. No dynamic functionality has been performed yet. And obviously, we will replace these charts with something. Might be we use these charts maybe in future, but right now this dashboard will just remain the static. All right, so I have also set up the menus on the sidebar. So these are just obviously again these are just the HTML menus. Nothing, no functionality has been created yet. So we have attendance, companies, employees, shifts, and leaves. All right. So what do we need to do? We will just start off by creating the shifts first, because in order to create a company must have shifts linked with each with the shifts. So first of all, let's create the shifts, and then we will move to companies, and then further the other methods and the other functionality. One more thing before actually start working on it here is that I just noticed that in the general functions we have created the encrypt method where it is this one. So we have created the encrypt method, but this encrypt method does not work unless you set the encryption key. So if you do not set the encryption key, this encryption will not work. So it will obviously return you the empty or the null string. So how do we need to generate the encryption key, and where we need to place it? So open up the config.php from the config/config.php and search for encryption key. All right. So once you have searched the encryption key, and to generate the encryption key, it's pretty simple. You just go and Google it out, the password generator.net, and this will give you a strong password. So any key can be used here. So I will prefer to use the strong key, so that it actually creates a strong algorithm and strong encrypted IDs. So obviously you can just type in any of the string. Let's say ABC can also be here, but to if you want your encryption URL or ID or string to be more strong and more actually not breakable, so you just have to create a strong encryption key. All right, with that said, let's move back to the dashboard file, and let's create the shifts first. All right, so what do we have in the shifts? Inside the shifts we have the user ID, the title, the start time, and the end time. All right, so let's go ahead and first we need to create the shifts controller. So what I will do is basically right click on the controllers, new PHP class, and call it shifts. All right, so I will extend it with, instead of uh, the CI underscore controller, I will extend it with base controller. Now where this base controller comes from? So this base controller is, I have created this one, and what it actually do is that it just extends the CI controller. And one more thing it does is that basically inside the construct method, I call the redirect if not logged in. So what will happen is that if the user is not logged in, it will automatically redirect the users back to the login page. And we are just, so this is just the base class is extending the CI controller, and we are extending the shifts with the base. All right, so in this way we do not need to have we do not need to run this kind of code in every controller, so we can just actually do it from here directly. All right, so what I need to do is basically just copy this line of code and paste it here in order to load the constructor method, and just call this here as well. And one more thing, I will remove everything from here except this one. All right, so we have the shifts controller ready. Let me just open it again. The shifts controller is ready, and what I need to do is basically create a function named as index, and one more thing is to create a function for the add method. Alright, so this add method will accept the, first of all, let's create a title, create new shift, and why not we just uh, make this an array and just title here. Alright, so now just call the dashboard underscore header, title, dashboard footer, and dollar this load view, and inside the view we will pass the view. So that will be shifts forward slash add, and obviously we need to pass the data variable to this one. So I will quickly go ahead and create the new directory called shifts, and inside the shifts we will create a PHP file called add.php and index, and one more file will be the edit one. All right, so what I need to do is basically I will quickly set up the HTML form and will come back to the video. All right, so the form is ready and we have the HTML title for the shift title and the start time and the end time. All right, so what do we need to do is basically let's make this thing dynamic as well. So we have, as you see that we have made this data array and pass it into the view, so we can actually easily get it here. So I will just say PHP echo title. All right, and this will say create new shift. All right, so we need to just submit the form. In order to submit the form, we just actually need to check if there is some kind of post request, and the post request has the action name and the value is and the action value is equals to this one. So if that exists, then we need to call the method to run the actually do the form validation and create the shift as well. All right, so let's go ahead and create the private function shift and just do some validations. So for that I will just quickly copy the validations that we have already applied here. Let's quickly copy and paste this thing inside here, and we have the uh, title, and the title is required, and it should be is underscore unique shifts dot title. All right, so why I am misspelling these things. All right, so title, start date, sorry, start time, it's not the date, start time, and we need start time here, obviously it's required, and the end time as well. All right, so end time, and if everything works we need to just get these input fields. So it's pretty simple, and the end time as well. All right, so just paste it here, title and end time, start time, obviously we need to make this start time. All right, so if everything is working perfectly, all right, so we need also to have the validation errors. Form underscore validations needs to be load, and if everything is good to go, then we just need to create an array, and inside the array we need to pass in the user ID, which is we can get it from get underscore login. All right, so we need to create the user here. So for that what I will do is basically just check this out, get underscore logged in user ID and get logged in user ID, and this will simply return me this session uh, data return, and obviously this will return me the user ID. All right, so obviously we have the encrypted user ID, so I just want to decrypt it before returning it. So return the decrypt string. sorry, the decrypt string and just return the user ID. Alright, so it's not mixed, it's mixed dot return bool, and now we can easily get it, get underscore logged in user ID, and the title is basically the title, start time, start underscore time, and start time and end time. Excuse me. All right, so one more thing we need to do is basically uh, if I just grab this um print data info array and I just reprint it out, so I need to make sure that the time is according to the timestamp. So let's say we create a shift of morning and it starts at, let's say, 7:45 a.m. and it ends at, let's say, uh, 12:45 a.m. And if I just submit it, the title field is required. What's the name of this field? Alright, so we have not defined the name here, so it's the title. Alright, so okay, so one more thing, value needs to be passed here, echo set underscore value title, and just quickly copy this, paste it here, and inside here we have start time and end time. All right, reload the page one more time, morning, and it starts from 7:45 a.m. and up till 12:45 p.m. Submit it, and we have the 7:45 a.m. and 12:45 p.m. All right, so actually we need to make this thing so the database accepts it like okay, so let me see how this accepts. So this accepts in 24 hours. So actually if I just give this time, sets this time right here. All right, so how can I do this? All right, so that's how I can do. So hour is basically, all right, so why this is going more than 24 hours? Pretty weird. So the time zone is set. All right, so let's say I this is okay, so it's accepting in 24 hours time. So what I need to do is basically convert this time into 24 hours time. So for that, I will have quickly to go into the date format date time and just give this the format, which should be GIS and start or time start. All right, so quickly just check it if that works. Okay, so it's 7:45. All right, so this is the early morning, and for the end time, let's check if everything is working. Reload. All right, so it says 12:45. Uh, what if I just mm, give it the 7:45 a.m. and 7:45 p.m. So this should say 17 hours. I think so. 12, 17, 19, 19 and 45. Whereas this is not working. So I think so. This should be the capital H. That should work. All right. So we are now getting the time in the correct format for the database, 7:45 and 19:45. All right. So what I need to do is basically just quickly go ahead and create the shifts model. So I will just quickly create a duplicate of this one and I will call it shift and rename it with shift, add shifts, creates a new shift into the database. All right, and what I need to do is basically load this model inside the constructor function. This loads model and shift. Alright, so what I need to do is basically further few more steps. Just basically quickly just grab this from here and paste it here and say, let's say shift underscore id, and we need to pass this one, and it should be shift. Alright, so instead of shift it should be shift model, like so. Okay, and it's just refactoring it, and I hope so everything will be working. Alright, so the shift model and add. So if the shift ID is greater than this, so let's return the flash data and response, and just say shift has been created, and redirect back to the shifts.add, like so. And it's otherwise, oops, um, something happened, please try again. Reload the page, and it says shift has been created. So let's go ahead into the database to see if this really works. Alright, so the morning shift starts from 7:45 and ends at 19:45. Alright, so two more shifts, morning, evening, and evening starts from 12 p.m. to, let's say, 7 p.m. or maybe 5 p.m. and create the evening shift, and one more shift is um, afternoon. Alright, so let me see what the shifts are: morning, evening, and night. Alright, so morning starts from 7 to 3, evening 3 to 10, and 10 to 7. Alright, so let's quickly go ahead into the database, empty this one, and let's create new morning, and it starts at 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So 1, 2, 3, create, and then evening from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. like so. And one more is the night shift. So night shift starts from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning. Alright, just submit it, and we should have three shifts. Alright, 7 to 3, and then 3 to 10, and then 10 to 7. Alright, so one more thing is, just go ahead and we need to quickly create the um, HTML for the all shifts that we need to load in and quickly create the edit functionality of it. Alright, so let me quickly open the index.php here, and I will quickly set up the HTML and will come back to the video. Alright, so our HTML is ready for the all shifts, and what I need to do is basically just dynamically get the data from the database. Alright, so for that what we need to do is basically just come to the index method and declare another sorry, the key of the array, and that will be as shifts, and $this shift model get shifts, like so. We are just calling the method from the model, and just go ahead and simply create the public function get shifts. So what this does is basically gets the $this db get shifts and return the data as let's say result as objects. So if you want to return the data as an array, so result underscore array would do the work, but we need to load the data as an object. And let's give this a comment, get all shifts from the database like so. And since we are passing the variable dynamically here, and we can get it here. Alright, so first of all, what I need to do is basically we only need this title, the shift title, the start time, and the end time, and obviously we need the actions as well. So right inside this body, I will check if count $shifts is greater than 0 for each shifts. Iterate through the shifts, and that's it. We need to now get the data inside the row. So let's grab this tr and place it inside the for each loop. And one more thing is declare the counter variable to set it to 1, and just increment the counter variable, echo counter plus plus. All right. And one more thing is basically remove this string from here. We need the title of the shift. So echo dollar shift title, and then duplicate this thing and start underscore time and end underscore time. All right. And one more thing is basically we need to have two buttons. All right. So two buttons. So the first one will be the edit, and the second one will be delete. And for the edit one, let's simply give this the URL, echo base underscore URL shifts forward slash edit forward slash ID, and we need to pass in the encrypted ID instead of just passing the ID here. We need to have the encrypted ID, encrypt, where we have encrypt string shift ID. In that way it will automatically encrypt the ID. And for the delete, just copy this thing and paste it here, delete. And one more thing is I need to have on click return confirm, are you sure, just before. Okay, so one more thing I need to do is basically btn dot small. Yeah, this small btn I need to have here instead of this large buttons. And there we go. And one more thing, I think it should be the warning. Alright, so with the times it says that 7 and 15, 15, 22. What I need to do is basically convert the time into AM and PM. And I think it should be danger instead of warning. So what I need to do is basically do the same date and HISA start or time to see if it works. And there we go, 7 a.m., 3 p.m., 10 p.m. And we'll do the same for the end date, end time, sorry, not the end date, it's end time. All right, so it says 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 3 to, okay, so we need to ignore the seconds here. We do not need seconds. All right, so we have 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. And why this thing I am making both buttons red? Instead, it should be edit and delete. All right, so let's go ahead and quickly create the edit form for it. So if I click on edit, it should bring up this form, this URL. This is basically the encrypted ID and the shifts and the edit method. So just go ahead and quickly create the edit right here. Loads the edit shift form and edit shift. All right, so instead of add, just load the edit, copy everything from here to here and reload the page. All right, so we have the form here, but we need to get the shift basis on this ID. So what do I need to do is basically get the ID first, and for that what I need to do is basically check if the ID exists, and after decrypting the ID it should give me the proper numeric value. If it's not, then it should return or redirect to some page. I have already created the helper function for that. I will quickly paste in here and I will show you what it does. Alright, so here is the code. What it does is basically it validates the URL ID. What it does is it actually gets the ID variable from the URL and check if that ID is set and it's not empty, and it should be numeric after decrypting the string like so, and it should not be less than 1. If anything from these things comes to true, it will redirect to the redirect URL. Otherwise, it will return the decrypted string or the decrypted ID to me. Alright, so what I need to do is basically validate the URL ID, just copy this thing from here to, let's say, ID, validates URL ID, and if that fails, I need to redirect it to the shifts forward slash index method, and everything is good to go. Now let's go ahead and get the shift dollar this shift model get shift by ID and pass in the ID variable. Now the way we are getting this one, just duplicate it, get shift by ID, pass in the parameter of the ID, and we also need to declare the parameter here, get shift by ID, and what I need to do is basically get underscore where, so like this, array ID and ID. All right, and we need to return it as a single row since this is the only one row we are fetching. And what I need to do is basically pass in the values, dollar shift title, and set value to start time. I think so that should work, or we will configure it if that is not working. The time basically what I mean, and just update this to the update method and process update shifts. And one more thing, I also need the input type hidden, name ID value, the shift ID value, so it should be encrypt string dollar shift ID. All right, reload the page, and actually it's not converting that ID. And okay, so it is all right, so we are here now. So in morning it's from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. All right, so it's actually working pretty much exactly the way we want it, 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. All right, perfect. So what I will quickly do is basically just perform the update method on this. So this video might take a few more minutes, but please stick to the video. This is because we are performing the CURD operations. And just copy this thing from here, this method, paste it inside here, updates, shift, shifts or shift, whatever we call it. And we also need to have the ID variable here. So this is also required, shift ID required, and like so, and just get the ID like so, and just give this another, create another array of where, and inside the where just paste in the decrypt string id and remove it from everything else, and we also need to update everything from here. And what I need to do is basically uh, dollar is updated, so edit info and where shift has been updated, and maybe return redirect dollar sign underscore server http, sorry, dollar sign underscore server http referrer. So what this does is basically it's redirects back to the users from where the user initiated the request. And if it's not updated, which means that no record has been updated, we will just type in uh, nothing updated, or maybe everything is up to date. Everything is updated, or maybe everything is up to date. Reload the page, and we need to create the edit method. Uh, just quickly grab this function from here and just update it like so. Updates shift into the database and where variable, and let's say update shifts and update this record on basis of where, and return affected underscore rows. So this will return if any row is updated. If it's not, it will actually return us nothing. So we need to return the affected underscore rows to check either if any row is updated or not. So if it is updated, this will return this message, otherwise this will return this message. Alright, so reload the page, and let's say evening 123 updated, and we can see that the shift has been updated. And if I just go back, shift has been updated, and if I click on update again, it will say the title must contain a unique value, we do not need to have it here, like so. Reload the page, and there we go, everything is up to date. All right, so we are now updating the shifts. One last thing we need to do is basically delete the shifts. So for that I will create a new shift which is named as test, and I think so we are good to go with this one. All shifts, and we need to delete this one. So in order to delete it, if we click on OK, it asks me to create a function. So what that function will do is basically just copy this edit method, update it to, alright, so it just delete shifts. And to delete the shift, we actually need to have the validation, sorry, the valid ID. And if that valid ID is valid, then what we need to do is basically call the delete method and just quickly remove everything from here, and let's say delete id, and just copy this thing, paste it down here, and redirect it to base underscore url, and like so, shift has been deleted. So just quickly create a function with the name of delete. I'm really sorry, I think my mouse is not working correctly. I need to check what the issue is. Delete shift from the database, and we are only passing the id variable, and let's say delete shift array id dollar id. All right, and one more thing, just update our comment section, reload the page. All right, so nothing has yet been deleted. Let me see what the issue is. Inside our we also need to load the uh, validation errors. So if there are any form validations, and let's quickly go and check if everything is working. Validation, shift index, delete, shift has been deleted. Alright, so reload the page, delete a shift. Is that working even? Yes, it does. So ID delete ID equals to this one, ID shift delete. Always this db delete shift array ID equals. Alright, so we are, I think so, we have the decrypted ID. Let me see what this gives me. Print data ID, exit, delete. It's not actually going into this actually delete method. Why is that? Or maybe validate URL ID, get the ID. Let me see if I am missing something here. Nothing. Shift delete. Hmm, all right. Let me see what the issue is. All right. So we are now getting the shift ID. I'm not sure why this was not working before, but if I just delete on it again, and it gives me the ID of 4. And now I will just remove this thing from here, reload the page, and it actually does deletes the shift. All right, so in this video we have just learned how we can perform the CURD operations using the Codeigniter 3 framework, in which we have created the shifts, add, edit, update, and delete. All right, so then in the next video we will be creating the companies, and each company we will link it to the multiple shifts. So each company can have multiple shifts, so it's like one to many relationship. And actually we are not working with ORM here. Codeigniter 3 does not support the relationships, and ORMs we will have to actually define the manual queries or joins to extract the data from the database. Alright, so that's about it, and I will see you in the next video.